You're watching 16 News Now Digital Plus's 16 Sports Extra, brought to you by Gates Automotive.
Welcome back to 16 Sports Extra with the South Bend Tribune. I'm Jackson Neill here for WNDU, and that's Austin Hough from the South Bend Tribune.
That is me. Sabrina Hoover, not with us this week. Don't worry, she's still around. Just
on
schedules. Schedules didn't allow for all three of us to be together at the same time, so it's just going to be the Jackson and Austin show for this week.
Yeah, just us two this week. She'll be back. She'll probably be back next week. We're hoping.
You never know with sports journalism.
You never know, especially when it's football season.
Football season, SZN.
There you go. And if we're talking about football season and scheduling and you never know, I mean, this past Friday night was a pretty good example of that.
Yes.
Like that segue?
That was the best, dude. You're the best. Yeah, there were definitely a lot of surprising results, I would say. We do a Tribune top 10 power ranking every week, not to cheap plug the content, but 5 of them lost last week. So we were guaranteed at least one because Mishawaka was playing Penn, but 4 of the ranked teams lost to unranked teams or non-area teams last week. So it was an eventful week, to say the least. So Jackson, is there a game that stuck out to you the most? I know you were in College Station
yes.
the whole weekend, but is there one that you want to lead with from the past week of high school football?
Well, I mean, I think we have to start with the Penn Mishawaka. That was our 16 Sports game of the week. I did not see it. I saw it got postponed, though. It kept getting pushed back, all the lightning and the weather and everything last Friday night. But a big result there for the Cavemen.
The only thing slowing down Landon Snyder was the lightning delays.
I like that. There we go.
I thought about doing that as the lead of my story, but that was a little too lame. Mishawaka winning wasn't a shock to me necessarily. I thought Mishawaka could win the game, especially at home. I know it's a 5-mile drive, but that matters sometimes, in sports. I don't think I had 27-7 on the bingo card. This is, I think, the biggest win, like literally a margin for Mishawaka over Penn in almost 4 decades. Like it was 26-10 in 2010, but to beat them by 20, they haven't done that in a while. Mishawaka's only won 4 or 5 times in the last 15 years, and before that, they hadn't won in 30 years in a row because Penn was this unstoppable juggernaut. No matter how good Mishawaka was, Penn was always just that elite program in the state. So, Landon Snyder, 200 yards rushing, touchdown, and he threw 2 touchdown passes, and that's a lot for a Mishawaka offense. They threw the ball 5 total times if you include the 2-point conversion they went for. Really, really impressive performance by Mishawaka. The defense was great. After Penn put up 49 points in week 1, it was like, whoa, this is maybe the best offense of all time. Are we going to have, Penn scoring 50 a game every week? And Mishawaka held them to 7. They eliminated the big plays, which is what both coaches mentioned after the game was the Penn didn't have those big 70-yard touchdown runs. I think, Callan Watson had one 25-yard run, and Tyshawn Bardo had one really nice catch where he caught it. It looked like it was going to be a 3-yard loss. He did 5 spin moves, right? All of a sudden he's 20 yards down the field. But they didn't score on those plays. They were nice chunk plays, but they weren't 50-plus yards, touchdown. All of a sudden the momentum completely changes. Kudos to Mishawaka for really stymieing them, and it's kind of a good refresher that sometimes week 1 isn't going to give you all your answers, so it's 2 good wins though for Mishawaka. It's 2 good wins. Marion is a rivalry game and Penn's a rivalry game, so now they get an incredible week 3 game with Concord. That'll be a fun one at Jake Field on Friday night. First NLC game of the season. Both teams 2-0. So it was definitely it wasn't a surprise that Mishawaka beat Penn for me, a full surprise, but to beat them by 20 and to really dictate it, it was never in doubt. It was never, Penn, is really controlling this game. They're just not finishing drives. No, Mishawaka first drive, 10 plays, 70 yards, touchdown, right in their face, and really never looked back. So kudos to the Cavemen and Keith Kinder for getting that team ready to go in a big rivalry spot like that.
Of course, and I mean, I think the thing that's just the surprising thing is the 7 points. I was there at their week 1 game against Valpo where it seemed like every single play was a big play for a touchdown.
Yeah, no kidding.
Kellen
No
Watson,
kidding.
77 yards. Tayshaun Bardo, great catch.
Yeah.
They just were making big play after big play. So to hold that offense after, I mean, it looked like you could score on Penn, obviously giving up 42 points to Valpo.
Yeah.
So, scoring on them, I was not, that's expected, but that's 7 points. That to me was the thing that jumped out as the biggest, okay, what's going on here from this past week?
Yeah, and we knew coming in that Mishawaka was going to have a good defense. We felt confident like that was maybe the unit. I've said it like 100 times, but that was the unit that we thought coming in like could be the best in the area as far as like who has the best offensive or defensive unit, period. Like Mishawaka defense was going to be in that top 5 conversation of best units, period. So for them to slow down, I didn't think Penn was going to score 49 points again. That would have been insane. But the 7 is surprising. I mean, it's 42 less points, and it was 300 plus less yards of offense for Penn. So kudos to, again, Keith Kinder and his whole staff for getting them ready to go in a big spot like that. And now, Penn kind of has a quote-unquote gut check moment this week. Like, it's one loss, not the end of the world, but now they get to play South Bend Riley, who has shown to have a really solid defense these first couple games. They're 1-0. They had a no contest on Friday against Fort Wayne. It's a whole other story. We can talk about that a little bit if we want, but yeah, it's Penn should, air quote, should win Friday, but I mean if it's close, second half, who knows? Like it could, it's going to be I think one of the more intriguing games that we thought maybe was a blowout coming into the year, but Riley's going to be amped up. This is the first time they're playing them in more than a decade. So,
and that's right. That's a Riley defense that week 1. I mean, how many safeties did they have? 4 safeties. Yeah, 4. We're still talking about that. Yeah. I guess because their last game was no contest, we just got to go off of week 1.
I mean, they were only down 14-7, to Wayne at half. So they were playing well. Like it wasn't a bad outing. Penn's a completely different animal as far as athletes and skill level probably. And Wayne's not like a pushover by any means, but still. It's going to be one of the more intriguing games I feel like this weekend or this week at Jackson Field. There, that's the name of the field. We're not named after you. Last time I checked, but
we're pretty sure about that. 100%.
Sources confirm.
Yeah, sources can confirm that one.
Yeah.
So another big result I want to get to from this past Friday night was Elkhart and Northridge. Elkhart closed 14-6 winners over Northridge. Austin, what are you taking away from that game?
Well, the Lions had 5 interceptions in that game. London Johnson with 3 of them, so that was a pretty impressive performance. I figured Elkhart would bounce back. I wasn't too worried about them after the Concord game, especially then when the news broke last Thursday that they were going to be at full strength again. Novell Miller and Carmine Orozco have been cleared to play by the IHSAA. They were initially ineligible, and then they appealed and became eligible again. So that news broke about Thursday afternoon. Story coming up on Tribune.com, cheap plug about that. I mean, Elkhart, they're very talented on the defensive side of the ball. It's a veteran team. They have a lot of skilled guys back on offense, and now you add those 2 guys, in Miller and Orozco that are going to be, we feel like a broken record talking about that D-line, but 3 of them, going to be Division I players eventually. And so, and Miller's a really good running back. He had 20 touchdowns and 1,400 yards, I think, for Mishawaka last year. So you part him with Connor Dow in the backfield, and that's a 1-2 punch. Staying healthy, of course, will be critical for Ed Squirgle for every team. And if Quinn Rost can really take that next step as a quarterback for Elkhart and get the ball to their skill guys, Elkhart could be in the mix once again. They really could win the NIC, especially after what we saw with Penn last week. Who knows? Obviously, Penn's going to figure it out. New Prairie is also kind of lurking there in the NIC, but we don't. Do we know what New Prairie is? Because they played LaPorte and Goshen, so we're still trying to This is going to be an interesting week for New Prairie. They're playing South Bend St. Joe. So that could be a fun game out there at Amzie Miller Field. And so anyway, to get back to Elkhart, that was a side tangent, sorry. You just tell me to go, and my brain will just start rambling in 500 different directions.
And we can go a little bit longer on podcast if we came over on TV.
Yeah. This is going to be hard doing TV next time. Be like, wait, you're cutting me off after 2 minutes? What? Yeah. So, I like Elkhart. I think they're going to be in the mix still. I'm not, and if I'm Northridge too, like I'm not discouraged. I mean, they're 0-2. But they played a really good Fort Wayne North team, and they played a really good Elkhart team when they're fully healthy like that. And those are two teams that they won't have to face in a potential postseason run. So, they played a 5A team and a 6A team. Like, I'm not too worried yet. I mean, throwing 5 interceptions, I don't care who that is against. That's tough. But, Northridge has a chance to still be okay. Like, I'm not, and again, I just keep on coming back to, like, you doubt Chad Epley, and he will turn the tables on you because they weren't supposed to be good in 2021, and they're in the state finals, and they weren't supposed to do it in 22, and they win a sectional, and they weren't supposed to be good in 23, and they're in the sectional final. Like, I'm not too worried about, them yet. There's not been anything that has concerned me yet from Northridge.
Yeah, so the first week of September after all. And I mean, and something else off of Elkhart, you mentioned that loss to Concord in week 1. Well, that only looks better after week 2 where Concord, beats Jimtown 49-28 and with that big result. So I think as the season progresses, that week 1 loss, especially for Elkhart's not going to be looking all that bad. Yeah,
and Concord, I talked about them just briefly earlier, but they're 2-0 and now they get to play Mishawaka this week. And this is as of this moment, it feels like there is a kind of a 3-team round robin that's going to determine the Northern Lakes Conference Championship with Concord, Warsaw, and Mishawaka. So the first leg of that is this week, Mishawaka and Concord. I believe Concord plays Mishawaka in week 4 or week 5, and then Mishawaka, Warsaw is like week 7. So it's going to be like every other week we'll have a major kind of NLC game. And obviously Northridge and Northwood can get back in the mix in that, but just based off of their non-conference results, it feels like the Mishawaka, Warsaw, Concord, triangular, for lack of a better term, will determine who wins this NLC. So, I mentioned this to some people, but we from the greater South Bend Tribune coverage area, we only have 4 teams left that are undefeated, and 2 of them are Mishawaka and Concord. So, that's going to be a big game out there on Friday night, and it doesn't get it right. It's kind of funny, like Mishawaka has a huge win against Penn and doesn't get any easier, this week with Concord. And Concord showed offensively, I think, what we thought they could be. Obviously Elkhart's a really good defense. So there was going to be a struggle. First week is always kind of a struggle too. Penn is the exception to the norm with that offensive explosion. But I think there is like Bo Brunner throwing 4 touchdowns, running for another, like, Sharice Brevard is a really dynamic wide receiving option for them. Of course, a lot of attention goes to Jerron Thomas, the running back going to Purdue, but they have some really nice skill options on offense, and it's kind of a similar setup and vibe to Penn. I think Concord has the edge on running back, but I mean the quarterbacks, dynamic athletes, Brunner and Watson, dynamic options on the outside, and Tyshawn Bardo and Sharice Brevard. So, Mishawaka, it's not the same exact game plan, obviously, but they can probably pull some stuff from what they did against Penn and apply that to the game with Concord this Friday.
Yeah, I mean, and having Brunner, just, how much of a dynamic playmaker he is, especially when you having that Division I running back. Obviously, you're always going to be, having that as a central focus of your offense. But now with him being able to, make these plays as well, it's just pick your poison at that point.
Yeah. If Brunner is what we think he is, right? Like, I think he is. I mean, he had a really, really great game, 325 yards passing, and he's probably a better throwing option than Kellen Watson. So that brings another dynamic to, like, yes, he can run the ball, but I think he's a better kind of pure pocket passer than what Kellen Watson is. And that's no disrespect to Kellen. He's an incredible athlete, but I think that's going to make a difference. That makes a big difference for Concord in that they have a quote unquote true quarterback like that where he can stand back there 20, 25 times and throw the ball around and be okay still.
Mm-hmm, of course. And then, staying in the NLC, you kind of mentioned them a little bit earlier, but Northwood, I wanted to talk about this because it was a result where, if you're just kind of following along with the game, it's like, okay, Northwood, they go out in front against Portage, and then all of a sudden you see the final score, losing 19-16. Mm-hmm. Not the result you're hoping for if you're Northwood.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the more surprising ones of the week. Portage is a school that went 0-10 last year. Now they're 2-0 this year, so kudos to them for turning it around. 2 really nice wins, including, you're down 16. You're down 16-0 on the road. Northwood's a hard place to win at. It's historically a great, program. You could have easily, rolled over and just kind of rolled over and died, for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
but,
given up, basically.
Move on to next week. And kudos to them for stepping up and not, fighting back and winning that game. Northwood, it's a weird, it kind of feels like Penn, where they had the really nice first week, and you're like, okay, they're fine. Mm-hmm. But no, this is still a very inexperienced team. Like, Penn's an inexperienced team. Northwood still has a lot of, they're playing a sophomore quarterback. There's a lot of inexperience still on that roster from a team that was obviously great last year. So, yeah, I'm not panicking. Don't hit the panic button for Northwood yet. And they've got a couple games coming up here where they can, easily be going, they could be 3-1, we'll be sitting here and they're 3-1, and it's like, okay, crisis averted, you know what I mean? They're fine. And so I'm not too worried about it yet, but yeah, that's what's going to happen though when you're playing, 15 to 20 new starters, across the board like they are this year. Same thing with Penn. So.
Yeah, it just shows the inexperience. Like you mentioned it right there. You're up 16-0. You're up 2 scores in that game.
Yeah, and they probably got comfortable. They got a little comfortable. Like, hey man, we got this in the bag. We won last week by 20. We went. And even if a lot of these players maybe were on the bench last year, they were part of a team that went all the way to the state championship. Oh, we're Northwood. Right.
We're Northwood, and it's like when you're when you're a senior and you've played multiple years, you understand what it takes to maybe continue earn that. And in this instance, it's just like, okay, you're up 16-0. It's like you can't ever let up in these games because you have that target on the back. Everyone's coming to play you this year and saying, oh, we beat the team that was in the state title last year.
Right.
It's not only are you Northwood, this great program, but you're also, oh, we want to beat you because of that, of what happened last year as well. I think it's just a classic case of inexperience. And going forward, I know Nate Andrews will have his team okay, just because we're up does not mean we can stop. We have to keep it going for all four quarters.
Absolutely, you said it perfectly. I don't need to add anything else.
There we go.
Good job, Jackson.
Oh, thank you so much, Austin.
Jackson Neill makes a good point.
There we go. Took 15 minutes to get to my first good point.
1.5 episodes.
There we go. All right, so now let's go for week 3 coming up this Friday. By the time you're hearing this, probably tomorrow night. And we've kind of already talked about a couple different games, a couple different storylines for this week. But I guess just overall, maybe what are the games you're really circling? What are the matchups you're really looking at heading into this Friday night?
So this is a big conference week for real, because most of these, like the NIC and the NLC, both have 8-team conferences, so 7 games. So they all start this week. We mentioned, I think the NIC game of the week is, I think it's St. Joe at New Prairie. I think that's the best game in the NIC. This week, St. Joe won 21-9 last week over Fort Wayne Southside. Good bounce back for them after a close loss to Lakeland in the season opener. Game that they probably, I don't say they should have won, but they were coming back and it kind of had just a dumb penalty and it cost them. But, that's again, I mentioned with New Prairie, they beat LaPorte and they beat Goshen. So those are 2 teams that we aren't expecting to maybe necessarily be there, good at the end of the year. And Goshen's going through a rebuild, and New Prairie's or LaPorte's kind of going through a rebuild too. So this feels like the first kind of real quote unquote test for New Prairie. What is their inexperience going to look like? If the game is tight on a Friday night, and St. Joe has these guys who have been through these varsity games the last 2 years. So that to me is kind of that's actually the game I'm going to be at on Friday night. So maybe I'm just trying to hype it up in my own head, but I think it is a really interesting game. And I think if New Prairie's not careful, the Huskies can be there late in that game, and who knows, right, when it gets down to that at the last minutes. That's definitely a game that stands out. We talk about Mishawaka Concord, so we don't have to waste too much more energy on that. Northridge at Plymouth is kind of a stinky game because this is Northridge, we just talked about. They played 2 tough opponents, week 1, week 2, that bigger schools, teams they won't have to see. Plymouth is coming off a loss to Columbia City, but they're 1-1, and this feels like it could be I don't want to say a breakout moment for Plymouth, but they talked a lot in the preseason about this is the time, like we have all these seniors, we've played 3 years, like this is our chance to maybe really, not just be a 2-7 or a 3-6 team, like we could really make some noise. This would be a perfect spot for them to potentially get Northridge. I don't know. It's obviously not going to make any predictions here, but that is an intriguing game. I think it's an intriguing game for both teams. Northridge, kind of another gut check kind of moment of like, hey, we're 0-2. Like, are we going to let these first 2 weeks define us, or are we going to pull ourselves off the mat and go back to work and be Northridge to be the program we know we can be? So I think that's an interesting game. Underrated, maybe storyline of the week is Jimtown Fairfield. Corey Stoner, the Fairfield coach, going up against a team he just left in Jimtown. I wish the game was at Jimtown. It would have been a little sweeter, but it's in Benton. Fairfield coming off not a surprising loss. Heritage is a good team, but 21-0 after they had scored 55 on Goshen in the first week. It was kind of surprising. And Jimtown, they've played really good teams, Northwood and Concord to start. So they are 0-2, but they've played well in the first half of both games. So can Jimtown maybe put one together? And it's going to be an emotional night, of course, for some of the Jimtown players and Corey Stoner. So it's going to be that's a fun little game down in Elkhart County, southern Elkhart County, on Friday night. But other than that, like those are the kind of the games that are really, really standing out. And then, across the state line, Niles and Lakeshore is a rivalry game. Niles lost them by 1 point last year in a season that we thought Niles was going to be this. It was their only regular season loss. Niles lost last week to St. Joseph, not South Bend, but the one in Michigan, 30-7. They did not have Paul Hess, their leading running back from last year. He had a hamstring issue. If Niles is at 100%, they got a good chance to be really good again. So that will be kind of an interesting Michigan game. And then Edwardsburg as well. Edwardsburg is playing St. Joseph from Michigan, and they destroyed John Glenn 48-8.
Yeah.
Now, the health of their starting quarterback, Zeke Pagura, is also a big issue for them because he did get injured in the third quarter against the Falcons. But if he can come back, I don't know if he's going to play this week. I have not talked with any Edwardsburg people. I'm not going to try to speculate on what the extent of his injury is. But, if he's healthy, Edwardsburg looked the part big time of they've been the standard bearer of Southwest Michigan football for almost a decade, winning a state title in 2018 and doing their, multiple state semifinal, state runner-up appearances. Minor setback last year with a 5-5 season, but after week 1, it was like, whoa, Edwardsburg might be back. Like, the Eddies are here, and so they get St. Joseph, who beat Niles by 23 last week. So that's an intriguing game. If Edwardsburg is 100% healthy, that is an intriguing Michigan game as well. So a couple of fun ones north of the border, and always fun when the conference games really get going in Indiana. So. Mishawaka, Concord. If we're power rank the games this week,
let's do it.
Mini power ranking off the top of the head.
Quick draft.
State draft. State draft. Yeah. Mishawaka, Concord is probably number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I would say St. Joe New Prairie is number 2. Mm-hmm. Penn and Riley might be 3rd. And then after that, it's kind of a wide open. You choose your own adventure. So those are probably the 3 at the top that I would say are the more intriguing contest of the week. The Niles Lakeshore game is always fun.
Oh,
it
yeah.
can be close, and same thing with Edwardsburg and St. Joe. I think that's an intriguing game north of the state line as well. It's at Edwardsburg, so that can maybe help the Eddies as well. But yeah, it's going to be I think we'll learn. It feels like after week 3, we can really start kind of learning what these teams are. More at least.
Of course. And that was my big thing is like for the St. Joe at New Prairie game, it's, you kind of mentioned it. What is New Prairie? I mean, we just assume they're New Prairie. They're a great football team, and they look really, really good, but it's a team that we know that we were there together, in the preseason. Definitely some, inexperience at key positions. Going up against a team now that has 20 plus seniors on their team, it's so it's the exact opposite. Even though you were expecting New Prairie to be this juggernaut and back to playing how they normally do, it's going to be they're playing a good football team that has a lot of guys who have played a lot of high school football. Mm-hmm. So that's the matchup that for me, it's just I just want to see what New Prairie. I just want to see. New Prairie looks the part so far, but this is going to be their toughest test, of this season. I just want to see how they handle it. At home.
This is a huge if. I'm going to preface this by saying that this is a huge
Okay, let's get a hot take in here.
If New Prairie and Mishawaka both win this week, it's going to be hard not thinking about their potential regional matchup. It's hard not to be thinking 10 weeks in advance. If they both win and they both look good doing it this week, it's going to feel like, well, let's just wait for them to see each other in week 13.
Yeah, those are the two. If they both win, those are the two just teams in the area right now where you're just circling,
If. That's the important word, okay? Not to be confused with the movie If that came out.
Austin is projecting this. That's his hot take for today.
It's I don't have a great hot take, unfortunately. I don't, nothing that's coming to mind. I would have had a hot take, I think, if Kellen Watson had played well last week, but now my hot take has to be put on the back burner for now.
I will have a hot take for you coming up next week. Anything else you're looking for this week, Austin, or you ready for some football?
I'm just ready, man. Quick shout out to some other sports, by the way. We got really good Mishawaka volleyball is off to an 8-1 start. I know they lost to Warsaw Tuesday, but they're playing really well. We've got some really good soccer teams in this area right now. Mishawaka Marion girls are number 2 in 2A. Northridge girls golf is top 10 in the state right now. Penn's in the top 15. St. Joe's in the top 15, I believe, as well, or top 20 at least. So 3 girls golf teams in the mix to potentially make state, which would be incredible. I don't know if all 3 can, but they're all definitely in the mix. I just want to give some shout-outs to the other sports, man. Boys tennis, St. Joe and Penn in the top 20, maybe top 15 both at this point. Definitely St. Joe is top 15. It's there's some good talent going around this area. Boys soccer continues to be an adventure. You just never know with that. 3A has like 4 or 5 teams from the area ranked. Concord, Northridge, Goshen. The NLC is stacked in boys soccer once again. That doesn't even include Warsaw, who's always good too. This is a fun. It's been an intriguing start to the fall so far. So that's your other sports minute to end the show. That felt good. Yeah.
Is there any big? Not even a particular sport. Any other sport besides football? Any matchup you're looking forward to? Maybe it's between now and the next several days. There's a big soccer, big volleyball, big anything.
St. Joe and Penn boys soccer play. No, sorry, that was last week. They got moved. It got moved, I think, because of the heat. I don't know when St. Joe and Penn boys soccer play. We had that 120-degree day last week. So a lot of things got moved.
Yes.
There's a big girls golf match. It's happening Wednesday afternoon. It's probably too late if you're listening to this, but St. Joe and Penn that actually got delayed from last Monday because of the Jude Creek fire.
Yes.
So that is actually a big 9-hole match that's going to determine the regular season NIC champ. The 18-hole tournament at the end still determines kind of the overall champ, but the regular season duels, that's going to be decided Wednesday night. Off the top of my head, there's not a matchup. If I had known you were going to ask that question, I might have prepared for a better answer.
I got to keep on the spot. There.
There are good games. There's obviously always good games. And also, too, if you think of the football schedule, if you know your team's football schedule, especially in the NIC football teams, they all play each other in every other sport that week. So this week is St. Joe New Prairie week, and they're playing in soccer and tennis and volleyball, and so there's some fun matchups that come because of that. Obviously later in the year, Marion and Penn is always big soccer games, and that's coming in 2 weeks, I believe. St. Joe, Penn girls soccer just beat St. Joe last week, so that's kind of the first leg of the holy trinity of NIC girls soccer: Penn, Marion, St. Joe. Penn beat St. Joe 3-0, so Penn's in the driver's seat of the NIC. And then Marion plays Penn in 2 weeks, and then Marion plays St. Joe at the end of the year. So, yeah,
a little bit of everything right there.
little bit of Monica in my life. Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, Austin, thank you so much. We'll be back next week, hopefully a little earlier in the week to recap more.
Yeah.
More high school.
Labor Day and travel and everything, man, threw us off. That's
Texas.
all right, though.
Texas, man. Texas.
That's what I say all the time.
It's always Texas. All right. Well, Austin, thank you so much. We'll see you next week right here on 16 Sports Extra with the South Bend Tribune.